Hi, my name is Dr. Fox, licensed psychologist in the state of Texas, and in this video, what we're going to talk about is challenging those fears with facts. And I think this is something really important to do. I think that it can be a great benefit to a lot of folks, particularly those with personality disorders. A lot of the videos that I do, of course, are directed towards BPD. So we'll look at it from that framework, from a BPD framework, which is, of course, that these fears and the importance of challenging them with facts. And I think that that can be really, really critical. I think that can really help you not only build insight, but also to build a sense of personal self-control. And that's what we want. That's what we're striving for. So in this video, we're going to talk about those fears. We're going to talk about that BPD lens of distortion. We're going to talk about the facts and the authentic view. Also, we're going to push back on those fears. I've also created a worksheet that I'm going to talk about a little later that you can download. If you look in the comment section, take a look at that. Also, we're going to challenge those old views, those maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns that are kind of encouraged by fears. And then lastly, we're also going to talk about what are facts. What are facts, right? And we're going to try to pull all that together. And then again, I'll go over that worksheet that you can download and really kind of challenge those fears with facts. So let's get into it. And please like, share, and subscribe the video. That would be great. And leave some positive comments. That would be fantastic. So let's get into it. Here we go. So first off, fears. So a lot of times fears are based on some anxiety issues, and those can be the what ifs, right? So the what ifs could be, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I ... right? So it's a lot of fortune telling. A lot of times we get caught in these things about the fears that we can't control, the fears of something that may happen, the fears of what others may think about you, how you're perceived, how skilled you are. And a lot of times I think that these fears, particularly those that are along the personality disorder spectrum, I think that it comes out of some early developmental experiences that kind of fit into those early maladaptive schemas. So I do consultations with a lot of folks, and we identify these early maladaptive schemas and where they came from and how to sort of control them. And we see that a lot of times they come out of those early experiences, and that early maladaptive schema is a way of kind of conceptualizing the self and the world. So we see that fears can be a part of it, because as we develop, and whether they are early maladaptive schemas or whether they're other schemas and how we see the world and how we believe it to operate and function, that fears can be a part of it, which is that as we develop, right, that we are told what we can't do, what we shouldn't do, what might happen. Can't you see how your behavior is doing ... or that you become sort of this family crucible, which is the identified person who, destroyed the family, or, the family would be so much better if you didn't do ... if you weren't a part of A, B, C, D, whatever it may be. So that becomes the component, the underlying components for these fears. And over time, these fears in some ways become friends, right? And when I say that the fears become friends, that just means that they are things that you have become used to. They are things that maybe you see every day, you hear from every day. They become part of your daily routine. That's what these fears become. And if we look at BPD, and we see that the creation of the BPD lens is highly related to fears. Now, the BPD lens, something that I talk about in my workbook, and this is something I think that I also work on and talk about a lot with a lot of my clients, which is that BPD lens, it distorts, right, how you see the world, how you see yourself. It removes that sense of authenticity, that sense of facts that are in your world. And as we're going to talk about that a little later, but I want to make sure that you really understand that BPD lens is this component that distorts everything, right? But it also helps to keep that BPD in place. And the more power that your BPD lens has, the more distortion you tend to see, which your BPD lens actually encourages a lot of maladaptive beliefs, behaviors, and patterns, whatever those may be for you. So that BPD lens has a lot of power, and it feeds off of those fears. It feeds off of those early maladaptive schemas. But we want to shed light on that, right? Because the BPD lens likes to hide in the dark, and we want to shine light on it. Shining light adds insight, adds personal, self-control, self-options and choices, which is what you want, which is what I think we need in order to make good, clear, adaptive decisions. And that's what's really important. So we know that there's the BPD lens, and what we want to do is we want to lessen it by an authentic view that is reinforced by facts. So what we're going to do here, we're going to go forward and we're going to talk about how do we push back on those fears. We push back on those fears by looking at that authentic view, looking at those facts that are in your life. So think of something, right, that is a fear, whatever it may be. Think about it and give it kind of a gradient, right? Give it a rating. So let's say that fear is, I'm not lovable, right? Now that would be a massive one. And it's one that's pretty common in folks that have BPD that feel like they are unlovable. And they may have heard that, right? They may have heard that as they were growing up, that they are unworthy, that they are incomplete, that they are not able to do A, B, and C, and all of these other factors. So what happens is that becomes a fear, right? And that becomes internalized. And your BPD lens really grabs onto it. And it feeds that sense of fear. So they're feeding each other, right? And they're building this massive wall that keeps you stuck behind it, right? And you can't even peek over it, right? You can't because it's too tall, it's too big, it's too massive. It feels that way. But that's part of the trick. Because you can start to undercut it, right? You can lessen that wall by the authentic view and the facts. So let's think about that, okay? So that I'm unlovable. First, we have to do is say, okay, are there people in your life? Have people valued you over the course of your life? Have people looked at you and have they said that they care about you? Have they done things that are kind, whatever it may be? How have other people shown you positive attention, affection, reaction? No one has lived a life where it's been absolutely zero positive reaction, positive emotional outlay. They may be small sometimes based upon your experience. And some of my clients, they have a really hard time kind of identifying these things because, again, that BPD lens is really super strong. So it's hard for them to do that. So be patient with yourself, but rate it. How intense is that fear? From a 0 to a 5, 0 being none, 5 being really intense. So how is it? But let's challenge it, right? Let's go back and think about what experiences in your life have you had that have shown that people care about you, that people value you, that people say that they love you, that they care about you, they care about your well-being, things like that. It may not be the person who you want it to be. It may not be that caregiver. It may not be mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, significant other, whoever. That's not what we're talking about. What we're talking about is that fear of being unlovable. And again, this is a massive thing, but we have to challenge it. What's the authentic view? What's the fact? And that's what we need to do. Because what happens is when that fear activates that core content, and in a lot of my other videos, I talk about surface structure and core structure, right? Because personality disorders are based on this dual construct, right? You have core content, you have surface content, okay? And what happens is fears are actually part of that surface content that feeds and protects that BPD core content. So it's like a defense mechanism in many ways. So we want to challenge that because what happens is when that gets activated, oh, see, I'm not lovable, right? You have a fight with your mom, dad, brother, sister, cousin, significant other, whoever it may be. You internalize that. You begin to say, see, I have no worth, I have no value, I have no this. And that BPD lens is getting stronger, right? It's amplifying. And those fears are becoming more intense and they have more power. So if they were a fire, they would be getting hotter, right? Until they're this big inferno. So we want to challenge those, and we don't want to keep throwing gas on that fire. What we want to do is we want to turn it down. And how do we do that? We do that by the facts. Now, facts are things, right, that a stranger would agree with you about. If you were to say, okay, so people have told me in my life that I am good, kind, caring, and lovable. Okay? And if that person, how they conveyed it, maybe it's a text. And I highly encourage you to keep texts that are positive, things, emails that are positive that people say to you, because what happens is when you have that BPD activation, that core content activation, a lot of folks tend to spiral downward really fast. And what you can do is access this, whether it's a photo album, that you save like on your phone or something, and you can access it and it'll slow that spiral. There's also, if you subscribe to my YouTube channel, there's a community. And one of the things I put out there is I wrote to folks that how they've overcome BPD. And they've written some wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things about the challenge that they have, about how they've overcome it, about how they manage, their fears, and how they have built more of their life on facts. And this can be really, really important. This can be really, really powerful. So check that out too, right? Because that's what we want to do. We want to give you this sense of facts. We want to give you this huge, not even a basket. We're going to say that it's like a trunk of facts that are positive, that help you move forward, that challenge those fears. Now, I created a worksheet, and I'll put it up right here so you can see it. And what this worksheet does is it's going to help you, right, identify those fears, identify those facts, work through it, and get a greater sense of the facts and the fears. Sometimes fears are helpful, right? There are sometimes things that we shouldn't do, right? There's things like, well, if I do that, that could really be a big problem. I don't think I'm going to do that. I would be afraid to do that, right? Okay? So, fears have value, but when they become internalized and they reinforce core content and they reinforce that BPD lens and distortion, that's not what we want. We don't want those, okay? So what this worksheet is going to do, right? It's going to help you. It's going to list your most intense fears that you have right now. Then, what facts do you have that they're valid, right? I mean, we got to put attention to the fears. We can't just avoid them, right? The harder you push them away, the stronger they come back. And I think we can look at that like it's a rubber ball, right? That if you get a rubber ball, all right, a little racquetball, and you whip it right towards the wall, it's going to come back hard and strong, right? So the harder you push those things out of your mind, the stronger that they come back. And I think that can affect sleep, that can affect temperament, that can affect your evaluation of self. That certainly impacts your authentic self, which is what we're trying to enhance right now. So it's really important to do that, right? That we want to put some light on it. We want to give it attention. We want to give those fears attention, right? So what facts do you have that your fears are valid? Now, what facts do you have that your fears are invalid? Then, how do you see your fears now? After you look at what's valid and what's invalid, how do you see those fears now? Are they more or less intense? What options do you have to go forward fear-free? Now, when we say fear-free, does that mean we have no fear, zero fear? Probably not realistic, right? Because the world doesn't work in extremes, right? The world doesn't work in a split. It's not all black and all white, right? There's shades of gray. Okay, so there's something in between, right? The world does not work on a 0 or a 10. It just doesn't work that way, right? You have 1 through 9 in between. Okay? So when we say fear-free, we're not saying, to split in 0, which is no fear, 10, intense fear, right? We're talking about fear-free of lessening, and it's not driving you. So you are not subjugated to that fear. Okay, so what options do you have to go forward fear-free to increase the probability of positive outcomes? And that's what we want, right? What I try to do with all my clients is for them to recognize, build insight so they can make choices that move them forward to increase the probability of positive outcome. Doesn't mean just because you do positive things, doesn't mean that you're going to have positive outcomes, right? Even this morning. So someone was in my office. I have water that I give out to folks, and she was very nice person. And I said, would you like a water? And she said, is it cold? And I said, no. And she said, why isn't it cold? And I said, well, I don't have a refrigerator. And she said, why don't you have a refrigerator? Don't you make money? And which I thought was funny. So we kind of laughed about it a little bit. And then I explained the reason why I don't have a refrigerator in my office is not only because I don't have a lot of space, but it's also because, if refrigerators leak, I didn't want to ruin the carpet, and it was a whole big ordeal. whatever. So it was a lot more of explanation than I'll do here unnecessary, right? But that I think that, in talking about this, and I think in processing this, what we do is we shine light on it, right? And I think that, we have to not get caught up in those things, right? We can internalize why there isn't cold water in my office if we want, right? We can add that to a fear and say, oh my God, now everybody hates my office. And now, I'm not going to do that. I don't do that. I'm not going to get a fridge in my office either. So if you're ever in my office, yeah, the water is not cold. So I don't know. Yeah, bring your own. But cold water, I have regular water. It's like, room temp. But anyway, but how do we internalize that? I don't want you to internalize that either. And I want you to confront that with the facts, right? The facts are there's no room for a refrigerator in my office, and I don't want it to ruin the carpet. So there you go. But, so what are yours, right? When we look at that, right? So engaging in behavior increases positive outcome. And that's what we talk about. That's what we learn about. That's what we want to do, is what behavior can you engage in that increases the probability of positive outcome? Believe it or not, that is one of the central components of BPD treatment, of personality disorder treatment. And it is a powerful, powerful one. And it's sometimes really hard because it requires adaptive strategies and not maladaptive strategies. And it takes time. And I think that this Facts and Fears worksheet can help you do that. So it is in the comments section. Just click on it. It'll take you to my webpage, and you can download that all you want. I did make it fillable online, like on a computer, but you can also print it out too. So if you want to print it out, if you're a pen and paper person, you can do that, or you can fill it out online. That's great. Please leave any comments that you may have. Please like, share, and subscribe. I love the fact that people are leaving great comments and they're sharing my stuff, and I think it's helping people a lot. And that is the purpose of this channel, is to put stuff out there that can help people help themselves make better choices and increase the probability of positive outcomes. So there you go. Thank you very much, and please enjoy the rest of your day. Take care, and bye-bye.